Traveling to Consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome back to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I'm your host, Clayton Terry, the Secretary General of the American Congress Party. And today we are talking about Trump getting indicted. But did you also hear about what Biden did whenever that happened? We're going to talk about that and more. And then we're going to also discuss what the American Congress Party is going to do when we're in power. When we get into a position of power, we're going to show you how we're going to lead an example to stop what Biden said we should do whenever Trump got indicted. So without further delay, let's jump into it. So I usually like taking a second to pause and collect my thoughts on these things, because I feel like whenever large decisions like this occur, it can put people in a firestorm. No matter which side you're on, you can be very emotional. So I think it's always beneficial to take a second, to give it a second and let the event breathe and see how things kind of play out. Because I think in the following days, whenever crucial decisions like this occur, you get a very precise idea of what is or why these things occur. So to jump into it, and I don't know all the details, I'm not a lawyer, but if you go through the entire case, it seems to me as though this type of prosecution was something that has never been done before. That he had misfiled a payment, that the jury was kind of given these abstract ideas of what constituted a crime, and then said if he's guilty of any of sorts of these, then you have to say guilty. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know for sure, but that from both sides, that seems like what the general consensus is. But even furthermore, I guess it also seemed to me as though it gives a weapon to those who don't like Trump to begin with. The weapon of calling him a convicted felon. Because if you're able to just say, oh, well, he's a convicted felon, then it almost negates everything else that is going wrong with the Biden campaign. I mean, Biden being the one who sniffs girls, who has inappropriate showers with his daughter, who has immense amount of troubles, cocaine in the White House, who's pulling us out of Afghanistan, left over $80 billion worth of, or $80 million worth of equipment for the Afghanis to use, and gave it back to the terrorists in that region, who under his watch, we have a war breaking out in Israel and Ukraine, in Gaza and in Ukraine. But if you can just turn around and slap on the other side, oh, well, he's a convicted felon. It seems to me that this creates an even sharper division between us as people. Because I've also been seeing tweets of, well, seeing this happen, now I have to support Trump. I never liked him, but now I have to support him. I've seen several tweets like that. And to me, that's very startling. Because just because someone got convicted, and again, I mean, I completely agree. It doesn't seem like it's a legitimate case. It doesn't seem, from my perspective, the research that I've done, it doesn't seem like he should have been. So for that to occur creates a sharper divide between us. It pushes people to either side of the aisle. It makes people who hated him be so much happier that their hatred is almost validated. And those who love him think they need to fight even harder for him. I think it was like $20 million in small and first-time donations were given to Trump. That's crazy. So clearly there is more love and more hate generated around our current political institution. It also hints at the fact that the Biden administration is weaponizing the criminal and justice department in order to prosecute a political opponent. These are not things that we can have in a society, in a functioning society. But what shocks me even more, and you likely didn't hear this, if you're still listening, you made it to this part, that is going to likely cause even more division. Hopefully it doesn't, but it's just crazy to me, is that Biden, on the same day, just after the ruling, told Ukraine, he gave them the thumbs up. He said, Ukraine, you can now do airstrikes in Russia. Huh. He gives Ukraine the thumbs up to bomb Russia just hours after his political opponent gets convicted as a felon. I mean, to me, just the irony, if you will, is astounding. And it's likely not going to get a lot of press. Not many people are going to talk about that because they're too wrapped up on the other side of things with Trump. And so it seemed like a great time for him to announce that publicly, like, hey, that it's okay for you to start bombing them now. But even bigger than all of this, even bigger, is how we have to stop these wars. I, Clayton Alexander Cuteri, and the American Congress Party will bring peace to this planet, will bring peace to Earth, because it is achievable when you start pulling back the layers, realizing that they desire war. Both sides are. Both sides. I don't care if you call yourself a Republican or a Democrat. I've seen it in Congress the whole way through. And don't get me wrong. Please, 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 please do not get me wrong. I know that you, the innocent people, the civilians who have put these people in power, do not desire war. At least 80% of you from the last polls I saw do not desire war. And I'm in that 80%. Peace on earth is very possible. It's doable. But we have to have leadership that does not desire war. There's no reason for it. All war is the leaders of these countries having feuds between each other. Maybe it's unhealed masculinity. Maybe it's because they make money. Maybe it's, I don't know, fill in the blank. But the problem is that it still occurs. They still push for it. It's still one of their driving motivations. And I even just saw recently, I don't know if this was before or after all that, but Biden also said that, like, oh, now it's time to rebuild Gaza. And somebody who, myself, right, I think a few steps ahead. And I don't know, I mean, Biden doesn't seem like he's all there mentally, but somebody has to be thinking a few steps ahead. So wouldn't it be amazing, just amazing, right? Just fantastically amazing, if the people who rebuilt Gaza were the same corporations, the same institutions, think BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, if they're the same people who get the contracts to rebuild Gaza, who get paid to rebuild that area, wouldn't that be something? And then what happens to that land? I mean, they're going to be the ones who repay it. Do the people who got kicked out, who got killed from that land, are they going to own that? Or is it going to turn into a situation like we have right here in America, where all of our housing institutions, all of our housing has become institutions, if you will. No, but all of our housing, all of our single family homes are now owned by these large corporate entities. Is that going to happen to Gaza as well? Well, I mean, it feels like they're certainly trying to do that in Maui, which feels like we've forgotten about as well. Oh, talk about displacing people out of their homes and then not rebuilding, not allowing permits to rebuild. So is that just a ticking time bomb? Are they just waiting for people to just give up on that land and sell it to the government for pennies on the dollar so then they can get their corporate interest to rebuild those houses and then own those houses and then run it back to us? You know, it reminds me. It reminds me of a quote from the 2016 World Economic Forum. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. That was how it was originally titled on the WES website. And if you don't know, the World Economic Forum is where majority of the heads of state, the owners of these BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they all meet up on a yearly basis and basically try to tell you what their goal is, what they're attempting to do. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, I don't know. Are you happy paying outrageous rent costs? Because that's what's happening right now. Everyone's getting destroyed whenever it comes to rent, running out of control. Are you happy with that? Are you happy with your energy bills rising? Because you don't own it. So if one entity decides all the prices need to go up, who does that negatively impact? And wouldn't this mean? Let me rephrase that. This also greatly touches on another policy of myself and the American Congress Party, which is building houses for homeless people. Well, think about it. If we're already spending well over, or have spent well over $20 trillion on homelessness, and that number's supposed to increase, but yet it only takes $30 trillion maximum to create homes for every homeless person, why would we not do that? Well, it seems to me like we would not want to do that if I was a large corporation and I had all the homes and the government said, hey, we're going to up the inventory of housing by 500,000. Well, that makes a problem. That's a big problem because now they're not going to get more money per house. It goes down. Supply demand. Very basic. More supply, price comes down. Because the demand's going to stay the same. As a matter of fact, if we're just building houses, now there's no sticking point, if you will, to those raising prices, raising the rent. Does this make more sense? And don't get me started on the energy costs, because energy costs are going through the roof. Water, electricity. Wars aren't helping those. The wars are certainly not helping those in any area of the world. And when energy costs go up, people die because they get kicked out of their houses. The lower echelon of America can no longer heat themselves or heat their food. The lower echelon of the world, it's not just even America, but look at the world. This is also why I and the American Congress Party, when you elect us into power, we're going to be subsidizing energy costs, especially for residential housing, primarily residential housing. How would you feel if 50 to 70% of your energy bill was reduced? It was reduced by 50 to 70%. That would give you a lot more walking around money. And we're not even going to stop there. Once we get into power, no more federal income tax. Consider it completely gone, wiped out. Why in the world should we be paying more money to the government? They're just planning on wasting it on wars. So clearly, the driving force, the backbone of America, us, the citizens, we the people, are generating a massive amount of wealth for the world. And not only the world, but unfortunately it gets siphoned off into politicians, crony capitalism, corporations who, as we just pointed out, do not have our best interest at heart. And not even just ours, not even just we the people, but the people, the innocent people of the world. And here's the thing is we're going to still be able to build things. See, the federal income tax wasn't put in, I think, until like the let me do a quick Google search here. But I don't think it was like till the early 1900s, right? Federal income tax levied by the IRS. Bah, 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 bah. First year implemented. Why are you not? Implemented in 1861 during the Civil War. The Revenue Act of 1861. And here's the deal. The most common thing that I hear whenever we're talking about the federal income tax is that we're not going to have money to pay for roads and transportation. Well, first of all, it seems to me as though none of our roads are getting any money whatsoever put towards them. And second of all, our transportation is dismal. I've been all over the world, and it mostly, and when you compare it to Europe, we are almost, I hate to say it, but we might be a third world country when it comes to public transportation. It's absolutely abysmal. And if you want to talk about saving CO2, climate change, having great public transportation, whether it's trains or buses, subways, would be revolutionary for that. Because less people would need cars. You wouldn't have to pay for your car, especially if it was an efficient form of transportation, a reliable form of transportation. And what I'm trying to get at here, though, is that we had so many things. Roads, for instance. We had this thing before we needed a federal income tax. And take a wild guess at the purpose of the federal income tax if you didn't know this. I'm sure it had multiple purposes, but number one purpose was to help fund the Union in their effort during the Civil War. So look at that. we still pay government to fund wars. How crazy is that? That's just absolutely bonkers to me. I guess it's not that crazy. Now that I'm looking at it, like, it makes sense with everything that we've even discussed here. The point is that the time for war is over. It's done. Everyone's going to be rich. Everyone's going to be prosperous. And it is so easy. Seriously, all you have to do is vote American Congress Party. And if you can't wait till then, here's something huge that you could do right now, which is look up your state and your voter registration and change your voter registration to be with the American Congress Party. Change your party, click other, type in American Congress Party. And I know this seems so simple and so small, but energetically, if we want to jump into the spiritual side of this thing, it sends a shockwave to the system. It sends and creates the energy for the American Congress Party to thrive and to move. Because we are individually and together far more powerful than we have been led to believe. And it's why they're poisoning our food. It's why they're poisoning our air and our water, is because they want to dumb down our ability, our spiritual nature, our power. And so the most powerful thing we can do is come together. So the simplest thing that you could do right now, no matter where you're listening to this in the United States, I know there's people listening for foreign. I know we have a couple spin up groups in different countries, but if you're listening to this in America, the most powerful thing you can do to reclaim your power, to put more money in your wallet, to get the future that you desire more quickly, is to register with the American Congress Party. And it creates a ripple effect. I know you know about the butterfly effect. I know you know about putting your energy in the correct direction that will get us back on track. And this is how we can do it before November. This is how you can send a message to the system now. Because if we take a step back, look at it from a spiritual level, that's what it is, right? All of this is just a system that is completely distorted. It's time to put our names on the line. Because if you've ever watched any of the movies, Star Wars, trying to think of the other ones, Bug's Life, The Matrix, every single one of them, we reside with the resistance. The ones who fight against tyranny, destruction, and evil. It's time. It's time for us to come together and rise up against this tyranny that is being exacted on the American people. They tell us how much we live in a democratic society. First of all, it's a constitutional republic. But even if we did, they're not carrying out our desires or their oath of offices. They gaslight us into thinking that they're doing things better on our behalf when we don't want them to do it in the first place. So join me. Join us in the American Congress Party. Let's get America back on track. Let's improve our infrastructure. Let's take care of homeless people. Let's clean our water, clean our air, clean our food. Let's stop war. Let's stop funding wars. Let's put more money back into your pocket, to your neighbor's pocket, to your family's pocket. Because the people know the best way to spend the money. The government doesn't. And this is also, I didn't even talk about this in this podcast, but this is another way that American Congress Party is going to improve the system, which is our open books policy. We're going to create a system. And right now, me and a couple other people are actually creating a social media app, which I'll talk about in a second, but we're creating a software platform because we know how to do it. That's going to be open books. So every single dollar that is spent in government, you will have direct access and direct viewing pleasure to know where every single dollar goes. Why is this important? So you can hold us accountable. So you can tell us whenever we've gone off the rails. And we're going to put in a voting system where you'll be able to vote whether it's a yes, no, or a rating system so that we have the ability to know if we're mismanaging funds. And if we are, we have to act as the government within a week. Well, I'm not really sure exactly. Probably within a week. That sounds about right. Within a week and correct this budgeting issue that you see. Because it's for you. The government is to protect you. The only reason the government has power is because of we, the people. So it's time to have our voices heard. Vote American Congress Party. There is no other way to put it out there for you. And if you can get just one other person to sign or to change their party registration, even better. So much better. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you understand the direction and the issues that our country is currently facing. And hopefully this also gave you a view of where we can go. So even better, please, wherever you're consuming this content, please share it with one other person, because that doubles the people who listen to this podcast. And hopefully it gives you insight into seeing how we are divided as a country and how we can come together. We just have to choose to want to come together. And I think we do, but maybe just don't know where or how. And that's where the American Congress Party comes into play. So with all that being said, if I don't get a chance to talk to you in the third dimension, then you know for sure we're going to see each other in the sixth dimension.